Okay, we might just get started. I know the minister is on his way, so we'll just work through and see what time he gets on. But I know the Assistant Minister, Michael Healy, is also on. He's just currently on the road and he will be turning his camera on a little bit later. But it's great to have you on, Michael, and Minister Hinchliffe will be joining us really soon. It's great to see our participants online as well. So firstly, can I say thank you to everybody for making the time to come. I know that we have only given everyone a few days notice around this session, but we just thought it would be really timely and critical to share some insights and updates with you from our China mission last week, especially with ATE upon all of us this week coming, and I know many families and meetings already underway. So I think before I begin, I do want to acknowledge the traditional owners of country and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, culture and community, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and future. I would also like to acknowledge the Team Queensland delegation members who are all online. I know I've got the Department of Tourism online and Manny Gill is online with Amy. So it's great to have you here, team. I'd also like to acknowledge our RTOs. I know TTNQ is online, BETA is online and DGC is online, and we will be throwing to them to share some insights with you very shortly. And I'd also like to acknowledge our airports who were critical in the discussions and negotiations whilst we were over there. And I'd like to, can see you there, Ollie. I know Cairns is coming online, and we've also got the Gold Coast Airport who will also be speaking. So great to have everybody online. Now, the Minister will be dialing in, but whilst he does dial in, we'll just slip through to the housekeeping. And we know that there's likely to be a lot of questions. If you have a question, please leave them in the chat box. We'll try to get to them in session. Otherwise, we will be around to have a chat at ATE, but you all have our details, so you're more than welcome to call us, because the more we can share with you, the better. So in regards to our Team Queensland mission and why we made the decision to go so soon once borders opened to quarantine-free travel, was that we really had 4 key objectives. And the first one was to ensure, from our industry point of view, we were able to personally welcome back our Chinese travellers. We know that they were our #1 international source market prior to COVID. We saw nearly 500,000 visiting Queensland, contributing more than 1.6 billion. So it was critical for your businesses, for our industry, and we know they're good friends of our industry as well. So we wanted to make sure that we did take the opportunity to welcome them back personally as Team Queensland. We also wanted to demonstrate our commitment to the market. We wanted to engage with our trade and media because we thought it was critical to not just continue to provide them with the information about everything they love and know about Queensland, but importantly, the billions of dollars of new investments, new products, new accommodation and new infrastructure that we could see under construction or completed across the state during COVID. So that was really, really important. And I think for us to come back to you today and ongoing was to really ensure that we had that first-hand market intelligence, insights and sentiments that we could share with you, and we're doing that very much today. So in regards to the mission highlights, we definitely wasted not a minute of our time over there. We did go to Shanghai and Guangzhou. Partners were flown in from Beijing and Chengdu. We engaged with 39 media outlets through 2 major media sessions. We had key KDP meetings that we had invited 40 trade partners to attend with us. So our RTOs and our airports very much made the most of that, as did we. We had a number of Team Queensland seminars where we had 76 trade representatives were in the room for our seminars. We had a number of panel discussions where we then asked our key trade to share insights with us, which we are going to share with you today. And then we also had a number of events where we thanked our key trade partners, our VIPs, our airlines, TA and TIQ, to really thank them for staying with us through what's been some difficult times, but importantly, also to ensure that the relationship with them was strong and ongoing, and we do look forward to continuing to work with them. So what were the insights that we see? So I'll give you a little snapshot, but then I'll hand over to our RTOs to go into more detail. But I know the ADS was a really key area of discussion around there, and I will say that there is definitely a growing sense of optimism that Australia will be added to the ADS list in hopefully the next tranche, which could be May. We know that this will accelerate bookings and recovery, especially in the group market. There are no guarantees around that, but our trade partners were quite optimistic. So hopefully we will see some of that come to fruition, and we'll wait to see those announcements. But we know the ADS is very important for us as a country and for our industry. In terms of aviation, I won't take the shine off our airports, but we know, and our trade very much reiterated, the importance of indirect and direct routes into Queensland. So whether that be direct through either Brisbane, Cairns, or, aspirationally the Gold Coast, or coming through Sydney and Melbourne, we know that those routes are really important. We know that the markets and the companies in China are expanding their footprints globally, and there are some really big global ambition plans with some of our trade, which we'll talk on a little later. There were some changes in consumer trends, especially during COVID, but we know that at the moment our agents and our trade are saying that they are definitely looking for experiences first and then choosing destinations that suit their needs, which is a little shift from previous. We know that they're looking at long haul trips, which is a great opportunity for Australia, and obviously we know their length of stay increases when they travel long haul. We heard that they are traveling in smaller groups at the moment, so 10 packs and less, and mostly friends and family, which is really interesting. And we know that the millennials in particular and the younger generations are very much traveling FIT at the moment. They're doing a lot of their research themselves. They're definitely getting insights through their own means. So the FIT market is definitely one of growth, and they are very much using their mobiles to make bookings. So this is so prominent. We could see it during COVID through their search, and now we know that they're booking through these platforms. So that was really important. We also heard and very much got reiterated that Australia is very popular. Whilst it is taking some time to recover, it's very much popping up in the high set of considerations for travel. KDPs are seeing growth, and we know that Australia is seen to be a popular destination and top 2 or 3 when it comes to choosing destinations for travel. So that was really good. We also know from a sustainability point of view, there was some consumer behaviours that were shared with us during COVID that the Chinese travellers are looking for greater meaning and connections when they travel. They're looking for culture. They're looking for sustainable itineraries, and the travel for good positioning around Queensland sitting really well with that. Getting back into nature, immersing themselves back into country, and engaging with the people very much came through. So I think the other big one for all of you that are listening today as well that really came through is they are excited about hearing that there are new investments in products, accommodation, experiences, and infrastructure. That really got them excited, because a lot of destinations are competing for the Chinese traveller at the moment. They do know of Australia and the destinations within Queensland, but that ability to promote what is new, what's changed, and what's opened or reopened since COVID, I think that was a very strong narrative that they got very excited about from a trade point of view. So I think a really key message will continue into ATE. And then from a flexibility point of view, trade mentioned the importance of flexibility around cancellations, minimum night stays, for travellers to get back into the international market. So that very much came through. So there's some of the highline themes that came through, and I will now hand over to the RTOs to take us into more detail around some of those insights, especially specific to the regional products and infrastructure and experiences. And I'll also note that Katie will be also taking over from chairing from here. I do have a plane to get on very soon, but I'll be staying on as long as possible. But Katie will be chairing from here. And with that, I will hand over to Anthony to lead from a Brisbane point of view.
G'day. Thank you, Rachel. Thanks, Trish. Sorry. I was just looking at Rachel's photograph. Look, from a Brisbane perspective, before I get into what I think were the highlights and key messages and learnings from Brisbane, I think what I'd like to say from the outset is the Team Queensland approach was really well appreciated over there and highly respected by all that we met. And we didn't approach it as three subsets of RTOs competing against each other. We looked at areas where we could complement and work with each other and present a united front. And I think that was very well received. From a Brisbane announcements, and I think what attracted strong attention right from the outset was the fact that since they'd last been to Brisbane, we were announced as the host city of the Olympics and the Paralympics for 2032. And the trade found this sort of like an exciting prospect and one which, in their eyes, elevated the city status as a must-visit destination. That whole idea of once an Olympic city, always an Olympic city. And they were able to, they repeated it back to us. Paris 24, 28, LA, and Brisbane 32, and they were talking about Brisbane in those sort of circles. The article that they had already heard about, the Time article that came out and announced Brisbane as one of the world's greatest cities, shining that certainly has shone a spotlight on Brisbane. And then we were able to talk about our new infrastructure and developments. As a result, one of the gifts of the Olympics, of course, is it increases your accessibility and mobility and makes you a more functional, convenient city to get around. And so that sort of moving what would normally take place in infrastructure over the expenditure on infrastructure that would normally take 20 to 30 years has now been condensed into a runway into 2032. And so we're able to talk about the $19 billion pipeline that is really building business growth and momentum for the city. New transport and access infrastructure we also talked about, making it easy to get around the city, the new green bridges, the walkable city was something that was really attractive to them, particularly coming out of a COVID experience where they felt locked up. New hotels, we were able to update on many of our new hotels, in particular Queen's Wharf, is something that is piquing interest, and the way that they view the importance of Queen's Wharf to Brisbane is the way that they would view the impact that Marina Bay Sands had on Singapore. So that was an interesting insight that they gave to us. An absolute draw card for also, if you look at Queen's Wharf, an absolute draw card for the higher end business, particularly MICE. We provide an update on our new products and experiences. We're able to talk about River to Bay and how that is actually opening up even more so Moreton Bay. Our nature experiences, talking about Scenic Rim, how it was recently named in the top 10 destinations by Lonely Planet, was something that they started looking at Brisbane now as a potential base to launch their experience and their travel into other areas of Queensland, that we've got that top 50 status, but also on our doorstep, we've got extraordinary opportunities for them to explore the best of Australia. The city-based cultural experiences, including First Nations, our sustainable experiences, was something that they were very much interested in, introducing to the diversity of experiences in the Brisbane region, particularly with the sustainability focus. We were able to talk about our major events, not just the Olympics, but also how busy our calendar is with sports, arts, culture and music events, and the way that is looking on the horizon. And a key piece of this for Brisbane is that we need to grow our product and experience offerings. We've learnt that over there. We need to continue to not just rest on the laurels and the awards that we're receiving, but also looking forward so that we can build both supply and demand in tourism that's working incredibly hard to identify and develop new products across the Brisbane region. And that's it from us.
Thanks for that, Anthony. And it was so great to have our capital city on this delegation, and you and Laurel were fantastic to work with. So thank you for that. And just whilst we're on Brisbane, and as I mentioned, the Department of Tourism was very much a key, integral to the delegation, and Manny Gill was able to attend with us. Manny, I know you're online with Chad and Amy. Would you like to share some thoughts from your end before we go to Rachel next?
Yeah, I was going to, refer to Oliver from BAC, only in as much as that, I attended the meeting with both China Southern and China Eastern, and it's BAC. There's a commercial in confidence sort of discussion to be had. So what I might do is actually, in relation to the meetings with both those airlines, is kick that over to Oliver, and then he can sort of like go in as deep or as shallow as he wants. So over to you, Ollie.
Thanks, Danny. Good afternoon, everyone. Trish, you happy if I go now?
Yeah, well, we'll just keep the Brisbane theme going.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, I think the first thing to say is this trip wasn't the first engagement we've had with the Chinese airlines. Ben James, who is on our team that many of you will know, has been quite close with the Sydney office of China Southern and China Eastern over the last few months, and we've already begun the commercial negotiations. But up in market, I will say that it was certainly more enthusiastic than we expected. The window of planning is about 6 months, so we are looking at a northern winter commencement if any carrier does resume their flights into Brisbane and Queensland. So that's November or late October. There's opportunities with both the major carriers, China Southern and China Eastern. China Southern had 7 flights per week into Brisbane, up to 10 in the peak pre-COVID, and we're hoping to secure a few frequencies with them by the end of the year. For China Eastern, they were 4 per week, up to daily in the peak. And again, we're looking at opportunities to restore some of the services by the end of the year with them. Very pleasingly, however, the third carrier that we had flights operating into Brisbane pre-COVID was Hainan Airlines. They actually approached us impromptu, learning we were up there, and we've begun negotiations for the recommencement of the 2 per week Shenzhen-Brisbane flights that we had pre-COVID. So look, work to do in follow-up. We've been invited now to negotiate directly with head office, which is a great sign. Ben and our CEO, Gertian, will head back up to China shortly to continue those negotiations. But I think overall from the trade, there was a lot of support for the recovery of direct flights. In the absence of those in the short term, the likes of Cathay, Singapore Airlines, and even China Airlines and EVA of Taiwan may receive the indirect Chinese business through the wholesale environment. But we all know that those seats will be short of availability over the next few months. So it's still very important we restore those direct services. As soon as we have things progressed and any announcements, we'll obviously let the industry know, but probably a couple more months of work to do. But I'm very hopeful by the end of the year, we'll have 2 of the 3, if not all 3, Chinese carriers that operated into Brisbane restored into Queensland.
That's really positive, Ollie, and I know Brisbane Airport being there to have those negotiations in person were critical, and so we really appreciate the time and effort, and we look forward to hopefully some exciting announcements soon, but we know you're all working really hard on it. So we'll now go back to the RTOs. So Rach, we're going to hand over to you, and then we'll have Harriet, and then we'll bring Adam on after that. So Rach, over to you.
Thanks, Trish. And I just want to give a big shout out to Wendy straight off the plane from China for ATE. So it's
Hi, everyone.
Good to have her in the office for the first time in 3 years.
Office.
Yeah. First time. So it's been a bit of a reunion at DGC today, but speaking of reunions, the feedback you got, especially Wendy, was just, it was great to have the whole team come over and reunite with a lot of old faces in the industry. You know, obviously Uncle Paul was with us, Paul Donovan, and everyone seems to know him in China. But there was a lot of new faces, including myself, so making some new contacts face to face was really important. I think some of the stuff like Wendy took through the in the trade meeting, some of the new products, the new hotels on the Gold Coast were really positively received, and a lot of questions were asked around that. But the agents were still obviously keen on the regular products we have and wanting to know who's new in the roles, how do they connect with them. So I think there's some work that we can do at our end to make sure we're providing the right contacts to them and vice versa. So, because there's been a lot of change within the industry in the last few years. A couple of things that I picked up from some of the panel discussions we had in Shanghai and Guangzhou that would help the Gold Coast is the C-Trip commented on the need for a little bit more flexibility around 2 to 3 night minimum stay policies at hotels. I know there's a few of those on the Gold Coast, so maybe that's, you know, some feedback we can give back that people are still looking to stay here for that length of time, but they want to try the new hotels. They want to maybe just go for 1 night, maybe 2, and then move to the next. So worth pointing out. They're looking for a lot more aspirational content. So I think through our social media channels, both from DGC and through operator-led channels, we could probably feed a lot more of that through, particularly, you know, video content and the likes of that, and keen to get some KOLs out to promote Queensland. So I think we could work from a Gold Coast perspective to get that on the radar. The other thing I thought was interesting from the Gold Coast that we could look at is the focus has gone from not so much where Chinese travellers want to go, but where they want to play, and obviously Gold Coast being Australia's favourite playground. There's a lot of ways we can look at promoting more the experiences rather than the destination as a whole. So I think Wendy and I will look at that, and they're also looking at, they're choosing the experiences, they're looking beyond the price. So they're really focusing on that experience and what they want to get out of it rather than what they want to pay for it. So I think all in all, it was really positive. Gold Coast is very much loved in the China market. I really felt that, and obviously having Wendy there for the whole time during COVID, still working the social media channels and training the travel trade, it's really put us in good stead, and looking forward to meeting them all again at ATU next week.
Thanks, Rachel and Wendy. Harriet, we'll throw to you now.
Thanks, Katie. And I totally agree with the sentiment before from everybody, from Anthony, from Rachel. What an amazing opportunity to travel into China so early in the piece, just before ATE, and catch up with the travel trade. It was the sentiment was fantastic. It was great to catch up with old friends. They're people that we've been working with in that industry for many, many years. So it was lovely to reconnect. A lot of the opportunities and challenges are going to be similar across the state. Obviously, Cairns is a slightly more remote destination. So for us, direct air services and air services in general is still going to be a challenge. Domestically and internationally. Something that came through also from the travel trade was a bit of a nervousness around having staff on the ground, having people here to be able to service the travellers once they're in the destination. So there's a little bit of work from our end to really work with our industry and to make sure that that messaging is out there, that we have those services available on the ground. Obviously, the trade is still rebuilding, but this is a really good opportunity for us. And as we don't have anyone on the ground in China, trade training is going to be key for us moving forward. So it's a great opportunity, and we'll grab that straight after ATE and start with that trade training. In terms of the trends, the tailor-made FIT trend is fabulous for our destination, and it's really strongly coming through, particularly that family travel works well for us. we're an experience-based destination. So that trend of looking towards experiences and where you can get these experiences really plays well to us. And we've got some work to really work with our operators to then also provide more content for social platforms. We do have our own channels for China, and we have been doing really well for WeChat and Weibo, but we do need to certainly up the amount of content that is being produced for this destination. So, but all in all, really positive sentiment all around. The other thing that was very, very strong, obviously, is the trend towards eco or nature-based travel, which domestically in China has been very strong all through COVID. And as people are looking towards Australia, that is also very strong, and we are well based to be able to service that in this area. And the final trend that we thought was very good for this destination is also road tripping. So coming into this region and taking short trips, we have a lot of that information already for our domestic and other markets. So we'll be working closely with the trade that's looking particularly at that sort of road tripping, those road tripping experiences. So that's it for us. But all in all, Queensland, Australia, Cairns and Great Barrier Reef just have such a strong legacy in China, and it can only build well moving into the future.
Wonderful. Thanks, Harriet. Hi, everyone. Lovely to see so many familiar faces on the call today. It's lovely to have you all here and be talking about China. Before we move to the next area, I do want to pass on Minister Hinchcliffe's apologies. He is in region today and has desperately tried to connect with us today, but unfortunately technology is not his friend, so I do pass on his apologies. The next area that we just want to touch base with everyone is just a couple of trip outcomes. We think it's really important to share those with you as well. We were really clear, as we mentioned, with our key objectives, but we were also really focused on making sure that we came home with some outcomes. So as we've heard from Oliver, there's been some really positive aviation discussions. We'll speak to Adam in a second from Gold Coast Airport. But again, it's really pleasing to see that we know that this will be an aviation-led recovery, and it is so critical both through our direct and indirect capacity coming into Queensland. The other thing that the mission really provided was an opportunity for us to commence partnership discussions. We are in campaign right now with quite a few partners in market, but we were able to quickly turn our attention towards next financial year. And I think one of the benefits is being able to get the jump on those discussions with partners and to demonstrate our commitment. So we look forward to sharing with you all in the coming months some of those partnerships that we're looking to really develop and scale up and accelerate our recovery. One of the other objectives, as many of us have spoken about today, is the re-establishment of those relationships, and we certainly all came home feeling like we'd achieved that. We covered a lot of ground, as Trish mentioned, and engaged with all of the significant KDP partners. There was a lot of warmth and a lot of encouragement and a lot of rebuilding of friendships in the room that day. The partners can't wait to start coming back to Queensland, and many of them will be arriving in the next few days for ATE, and certainly look forward to reconnecting face-to-face with many of you while we're there. We had heard that we were the second tourism delegation that actually had come through China for our partners. Fiji was there the week before us. And whilst Tourism Australia had visited some months ago and that was very warmly received, we were certainly the first delegation of such that have come through from Australia. So that was certainly acknowledged and I guess appreciated, and was able to really again demonstrate our commitment to the market. And finally, the PR outcomes. This was a really critical part of the trip as well. We wanted to try and get some cut through. We wanted to really get the message out that Queensland was open, that we were good to go. And in just a short few days, we've had over 102 media clippings, which has resulted in over $750,000 in PR value. That is growing. And we've been really lucky to have everything from, Condé Nast Traveller, Phoenix TV, China News Agency have all contributed towards this PR figure. But it's also, more importantly, cut across many platforms and many media outlets. So we've had print, radio, social, digital platforms. We've had podcasts and television. So all in all, it was a really successful trip from that perspective. What I might do now is throw to Adam, who's on the line, just to talk to us a little bit about his insights from Gold Coast Airport. Adam, over to you.
Excellent, thanks, Katie. First of all, just thank you to Trish, Katie, Charlie, and the team for pulling together the delegation. Team Queensland does work. We certainly saw the positivity around key areas of the state all going together as one team, and being able to get the cut through that Katie just went through. I think is definitely enabled by that kind of approach. So really appreciate that, and thank you TQ for pulling that together. Just quickly from a Gold Coast Airport point of view. Pre-COVID, of the close to 300,000 Chinese visitors that came to the Gold Coast region, 75% of them came on a domestic connection via Sydney or Melbourne. So that for us is the first plank in terms of recovery. So working with the trade particularly to get those relationships rekindled, re-established, and seeing that in the room, particularly with Paul and his long-standing relationships, it was great to see and great to know that kind of volume can start to come back through on those domestic connections. But it is one of those markets where, pre-COVID, we were still only scratching the surface of what's possible with China. And so more capacity direct into the state ultimately will benefit all of us. And so, we're definitely wanting to see more of that direct aviation capacity coming into Queensland as a whole. The other thing just to note as well is that the China market is huge. They've only just opened the borders and they've already had 30 million outbound trips. That was one of those key pieces that came to us in the Shanghai part of the delegation. 30 million outbound trips in a few months. There's a massive market potential there for us. We know that Australia still needs to get on the ADS, and that's a little while away, hopefully not too long. Capacity will take some time to build, but the opportunity remains there. And I think over the next year and a half, we'll certainly see that start to come to pass.
Thanks, Adam. And Gary was hoping to join us this afternoon from North Queensland Airports, but unfortunately has not been able to be with us. But I do want to pass on his wishes to the group and just let you know that he also, both from an airport perspective, but as part of the delegation, had really positive discussions around particularly the Cairns and Great Barrier Reef Airport, but also, was part of the delegation really talking about Team Queensland. So the next section, or the last section for today that we wanted to quickly, and we're mindful we are running slightly over time, but for those of you who are able to stick around, we just want to, I guess, highlight a few key points of how we think the best way to get involved going forward. And one of the key areas that the trade, every single person asked us for, was a key contact list. They do feel a little bit disconnected from the Queensland industry. They're not quite sure who to talk to at each of the products. So what we're going to do is come out through our industry e-newsletter in the next couple of weeks and ask you to put forward your business and your key contact details, and we will compile that and put together a key Queensland list for the travel trade in China. They were really, really keen to re-engage, but just not quite sure how to go about that. The other thing that they asked for our help is to encourage us to re-engage with the OTAs and the ITOs based here in Australia. They appreciate that there's a rebuild that needs to happen for some of those companies as well, and they're looking for our support to assist them with product information, with rates, and with policies and procedures so that they can start to connect and start booking our product as soon as possible. And as Adam said, whilst long haul is recovering slightly slower than the short haul travel, they do believe that it will start to pick up pace quite quickly, and some of them are even expecting full recovery by December this year. So anything we can do to lay that groundwork right now, I think will really help us and put us in good stead. And then finally, it's really about starting to think about being China ready again. And one of those big ways of being able to do that is through the Chinese payment platforms. We are in discussions with WeChat Pay, Alipay and Union Pay to pick up some of the great work we were doing pre-COVID and look at how we can start to push out Queensland messages and content through those platforms. So that's an exciting space for us to be working in. And again, it's timely for those of you that are payment enabled to start to think about how we can reactivate those systems and those platforms within your payment your devices that you have in your businesses. But over the next 6 months, we will be setting up some workshops with those partners again to come back out and provide updates and also share the marketing activity we'll be undertaking. So again, keep your eye out in our newsletter for more information, and we'll work with our regional partners in delivering those as well. And finally, we do have a number of China-ready fact sheets and tools on our website that would encourage you to reconnect with. And it would be remiss of me not to mention Tourism Australia's marketplace, which is coming up in China first week of December. So I think Rosalind or someone from TA was joining us today, but stay tuned for their newsletters. We expect that will start to open up registrations for that early in the new financial year, and we'd love to encourage as many businesses as possible to join the Queensland delegation in heading into China for the first time. Other than that, as I said, everybody's really looking forward to ATE next week. There'll be over 90 Chinese buyers at that event, so a great opportunity for us to reconnect with the market in a really significant way. If you've got any questions, as we mentioned, pop them in the chat. We'll do our best to get back to you all. Otherwise, most of us will be at ATE next week, and we'd love to have that chance to catch up and answer any questions that you may have. But just to wrap up this afternoon, thank you so much for joining us. And sorry, Charlie, I forgot, has also joined us, also arriving into Queensland this afternoon, and has just posted the great news that was announced on Anzac Day that PCR tests no longer required from the 29th of April to return to China. Hey, Charlie. Is there anything you wanted to say, Charlie, before we closed out today?
Oh no, all good. So excited to be arrived on the Gold Coast. I took the air train, really travel as a FIT today.
Welcome back, Charlie. Lovely to have you here. Oh, we've had a few hands pop up. Ollie, did you want to say something? No. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time. It was wonderful to be with you, and we look forward to catching up with you all soon. Have a great afternoon.